Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. We just discussed 10 seconds ago about it. Well, I disclosed that this is right after the game. Or are we really trying to fake people into believing we're doing this on Friday afternoon? This is right after the game. We appreciate Rob Hummel coming on with us after a night's work doing the Purdue-Minnesota game. Rob, welcome to Gold and Black Live. I know this is the highlight of your media week, I'm sure.
Highlight of my day right here. That's right.
There you go. But really an interesting game. Obviously, disappointing if you're a Purdue fan, a tough loss. I thought you said, as we chatted earlier, no one wants to hear this, but as tough as the Big Ten is, there is some evening out that goes on. I mean, Purdue won 2 games with very short leads again at Ohio State and at Michigan State, or lead time, I should say. Lost 2 to Maryland and Minnesota. That they led most of the game, but that's what's happening this year.
I think so. I think that's kind of the way it goes in college basketball, and it's the way it went with us. You know, I remember that happened with us multiple times, where it's like you steal one, you lose one you shouldn't. It's kind of the nature of the beast, and Minnesota's a good team. Like, I don't think either team shot it great tonight, but, you know, they matched Purdue's physicality, and first game, Purdue just punked them on the glass. And I thought the Gophers did a good job tonight of rebounding the basketball. Travion Williams was terrific. And certainly some of the plays down the stretch, I think you wish you maybe could have back. Some weird things happen. Like Gabe Kalsher kind of trips over Sach Stefanovic or runs him over, and it looks like it's kind of incidental contact, but then he gets a wide open shot, and next possession we foul, and we go from up 5 to tied, and it's just like those 2 possessions. You're like, man, what just happened? You know? So I think weird game, but at the same time, if you're Purdue, Minnesota's receiving votes in the top 25 polls. They've got one of the best guards in the country. I think you're disappointed because you put yourself in a position to win, but at the same time, there's a lot of games left to be played.
Yeah, I thought there was a key play, and I don't know exactly how much time left, and I kind of thought about it. And a lot of things happened, like 3 or 4 minutes to go, where Purdue misses Gillis may have missed a 3 that rimmed out. And Minnesota comes right down the court and makes a 3. Now, I know Gillis hit one later, and it looked pretty good for Purdue at that time, but it was just one of those games where couldn't get enough distance, and that's you know, there are 2 teams on the court, and one team, Minnesota, made the plays to get the job done.
Yeah, those guys are on scholarship too. Hank used to always say to us, you know, like they're there for a reason. They're at a Big Ten school. Like, they have a good team. The most disappointing part is that it's much like the Maryland game. Yeah. And I think that, you know, there's losses from when I played at Purdue where it's like, man, we really learned something there, and we won a game later. Because I think that's what's frustrating with this game is like, all right, we've kind of been through this with Maryland, and maybe we didn't so much learn from it, and it kind of happened again tonight. You know, the late game execution wasn't maybe as good as Purdue would like, and there were some weird plays. But at the end of the day, this is a young team. Like, I think people forget that because you start winning. You know,
it's like, intoxicating.
When you start winning, it's like, well, they should win. You know, but at the end of the day, you're playing 4 freshmen a ton of minutes. You don't have any seniors. There's a lot to like about Purdue, and I still think very highly of this group. And you know, I think going forward, they can still win a lot of games.
Yeah, you had to ask the question that you're going to get asked about the baby boilers and all that stuff, and you were right to say on the broadcast that different. It's just a different group. But you had some similar experiences, and what it's like for young guys that are really talented to lose. You guys had a huge winning streak after your freshman year, and then you lose that just a heartbreaker at Ohio State, and had a chance to win a Big Ten championship, all that. But this group's got some of that same experience. What do you like about what do you learn from this? I mean, if you're a Jaden Ivey or if you're a Brandon Newman, you know, what do you have to take from this as a young guy?
Yeah, I just think that, you know, you have to execute. You mentioned Jaden Ivey, like, you know, he makes the shot at Ohio State. It's a big time shot. It's a big time play. But tonight, you know, you don't really have it going from 3. Drive the basketball. You know, use your athleticism, use your size, your speed. And at times, and I think this is like the next level for him. And it's going to time, and it's going to take work. But and Etuan Moore kind of went through this a little bit. Like, there was a drive in the second half that I recall where he's going to his left. He's got, I want to say either Travion or Zach rolling, and he's got Brandon Newman popping out. He is so wide open behind you. And when you're young, it's hard because you're only seeing in front. And Jaden Ivey is wired one way, like each one more to score. So he's thinking, I got to score this thing. But, man, you've got a dude that's shooting 44% from three right behind you. And it's a tough pass, and it's a mature pass. And I don't think he's there yet. But, like, those are the types of things where you watch film, you learn from it. You know, when we were freshmen, certainly the Ohio State loss was gut-wrenching because you knew what we had just lost. But early on, we lost at Missouri. We led by like 8 or 10 with at the under 4 timeout. And I remember just sitting on the bus because we had to actually bus to St. Louis because there was an ice storm. Yeah. So we couldn't fly out of Columbia. I remember like texting with Conzo Martin, who was sitting in the front of the bus. Like, I was devastated. Yeah. Like, it was crushing, you know, like, just how can we not have this happen again? Because when you put yourself in that type of position and you lose, it's hard. Yeah. But you watch the film, you learn from it. The more you're in that environment and that experience, like, you're gonna improve. And like I said before, I still think very highly of Purdue. I think they're gonna have a great season still.
Newbert is still driving home from that game. I want you to know. He still talks about the 15-hour ice because he drove and.
It was terrible.
I guess it was awful.
It was like the roads were ice rinks. It was really bad. So we're glad that Brian made it. We're glad he was able to make it back.
You've got a wonderful sense of style to you, but you're in the damned if you do, damned if you don't club here, because if you ever make a comment that by Purdue fans, you know, and you were right, I think, at the end of on the call or no call on Travion Williams, didn't think it was a travel, and when you go back and look at it as objectively as you can, I don't think he gets pushed. He might. I'm not sure he travels, but my point is, what's that been like for you? Just because, you know, you do a great job of being objective, but you are a Purdue person. That's who you are. So
you know, I asked Stephen Bartow this when I played. Yeah. He was calling a game of ours my junior year, and he came out to like talk to me, and I'm talking to him, and I asked him, I go, how do you stay objective? Like, how are you not so biased to Illinois? Because you were a great player there, and like you know, you played and you went there. And he literally said to me, I'll never forget this. He goes, Robbie, I look at where my paycheck comes from. And at the end of the day, that is definitely like part of it, right? Like, you know, you have a responsibility to your employer to do a good job. And it's my goal in this whole deal to move up and get better games and keep getting put on big games like tonight. And I think in order to do that, you have to be as objective as possible. And it's hard. You know, I still, obviously, I love Purdue. I root for Purdue when I'm not doing the game, but when I'm doing a game, I try to turn it off. And it's hard. Like, it is hard. Yeah. But if you don't, you're going to sound like an idiot. So you have to. Like, you can't be out there saying we, or like, you know, it's just, it wouldn't be good. You're never going to get good games if you do that. And, you know, I try to be as objective as possible. Those replays are probably the hardest part of doing this, especially here. So I don't get to see it live. Yeah. And I've got a monitor right here it's probably a foot high and like 2.5 feet long. And that's what I'm watching the game. And it's on a Zoom feed. You know, when you're doing it at Big Ten Network, those feeds are hardwired back from the campuses. So you're in HD. Tonight, you know, we were doing this. The game was produced from a packager. ESPN sometimes does that because this is a late switch. Our game was supposed to be Wisconsin, Nebraska, and it ends up – so there's not time for them. ESPN's got to subcontract it out to a packager. So the feeds that Jason and I were getting were by no means great. Like, they were choppy. You're watching on a Zoom call like you and I right now, and you're trying to, like, call replays, and it's a challenge. You know, calling from home is definitely hard. But – it's a part of it. I'm glad that I get to work through this. I'm glad there's college basketball, but that's probably the hardest thing is those bang plays where you're looking on a screen and, you know, trying to determine what happened.
Now, you don't know any different, but are you behind? Are you seconds behind the action? I mean, I always watch, you know, like when I'm watching the game on DirecTV, I'm 30 seconds behind. So, you know that?
Right. I don't think so. We might be like a second or two delayed just because of like the internet or whatever. But the biggest thing is Jason Benetti and I are on the same delay. When you do a game at BTN with, like, if I'm in the studio there and let's say I'm doing the game with Kevin Kugler, who usually does them from his home in Omaha, 2 seconds behind me. So that's when it gets really confusing times. That's really hard. And it's hard to like kind of banter back and forth, and like you just got to call the game and get in and get out. And like even if you have a thought and you say something and then something comes to you, if you've paused it all, Kevin's here and thinks you're done, and he's delayed 2 seconds. So that's tough. That's definitely tough. It's been an adventure. My first game, my internet just crashed, and I was just gone for like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Where I'm like resetting the Wi-Fi, and like I'm on the phone with people in Bristol. It's been an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you've handled it well. That is interesting. You got to be, when you're in real time. You could tell tonight that you guys, were that way, and the banter back and forth. But you do a good job of answering. He throws you some questions, some open-ended questions where you've only got much time to answer. I said,
I love working with Jason because he keeps you on your toes. That dude, he's really smart. He's like an encyclopedia of all knowledge, movies, music, sports. Yeah. I mean, he's just. I think that he will one day be the guy that if he stays at ESPN, like he could be calling Monday Night Football. Like he's good enough to do that. He's really talented.
All right. Well, part of the reason we're doing this tonight is because you're going to be busy tomorrow, Friday, in your other life, which is 3-on-3 basketball. You have other things in your life besides basketball, but still, this is. Tell us a little bit about where that's going and how that's going, and what you see for the Olympic Games here, not only for yourself, but the feeling that they're going to be able to come off on time.
Yeah. No, it's been hard balancing. I've lifted 4 days a week. I've been on the court 3 days a week morning. So like this morning I got up at 7:30, ate breakfast, went over there, lifted weights, came back, did a little final prep for the game, and then did the game. And that's kind of been how every day is during the week. There's some weeks on the court too, depending on my schedule, but a lot of games Saturday. I haven't had to travel too much. I've only done 3 games on site, so I've mostly been able to stay in Chicago, which has been good for that. I think the Olympics are going to go. I think that there's some vaccine stuff that's going to come out here for the athletes. Everything I've heard through USA Basketball and the USOC has been that kind of rumor was totally false. I mean, Japan has spent $25 billion on this, so they want it, is what I've been told. And it would be tough if they canceled it, because the amount of, I guess, from a money standpoint of paying to train, the time standpoint of doing that. I moved down to Atlanta for 2 months in September and October just to train at a facility. So there's certainly been a commitment from a time and effort perspective too. But it's been tough to juggle. You just have to think about the end goal. There's certainly plenty of mornings where you don't go to bed till late because you have a game, or you're preparing for your game the next day, and you're like, man, I've got to wake up at 7 and go really work hard for the next 3 hours. That can be daunting for sure. But it certainly is kind of this is the final hurrah for me playing. Like after this, I really don't care what happens from a playing standpoint. This is like the last thing for me. So, the Olympics are certainly the end goal and the final thing here, and it's certainly been a sacrifice, but it's been worth it. It's been a lot of hard work, that's for sure.
And that we almost can say you have an old body now. That's not possible, but you are. I mean, but you do. It is different than you were when you were 19. I mean, there is a little bit of
totally.
Different thing.
I think about when I was 19, and you'd eat McDonald's, jump out of the car, and go play like 5 AAU games, and we had Newber covering all of them.
Yeah,
so like it was easy. That was fine. Now my warm up is longer than like my work used to be, just to get out of bed and get moving. You certainly feel it, and I turned 32 in March, so next month, which is crazy. But yeah, I guess at 32, I can still dunk, I can still move. Yeah. That's good. My goal is I got to at least be able to do it till I'm 40. I want to be able to dunk at 40, and then after that, we'll see.
All right, so you're not totally done with. You're maybe totally done with competing, but you're gonna be playing basketball for a while, at least on a somewhat recreational level. What's it going to take for you? I mean, what needs to happen for you to make it to Tokyo? I mean, is there a clear path of what? I mean, just give us a little bit of a feeling for that.
Sure. So, we won the World Championship 2 years ago. That was in summer of 2019. I into that tournament thinking that if we got in the top 3, you were given an automatic bid to the Olympics. Yeah. That's not true. You are given an automatic bid to the Olympic qualifying tournament. So that was definitely like surprising to me because I really thought when we got to the final, I was like, well, we clinched, great. Now we just got to go win a gold medal, you know? Yeah. And it's interesting because FIBA, you know, 3-on-3 is a very new sport. This is the first time in the Olympics. Sometimes you kind of get the feeling like they're just making it up as they go. You know?
That may be true.
And which, you know, I get it. It's new. So they had the way of qualifying for the Olympics was Japan gets in automatically. They're the host country. The top 3 teams in terms of, or countries, points for their federation got in. So that was Serbia, Russia, and China. And I honestly think that 2 of those countries were cheating, but that's another story. Then there's the top 3 at the Olympic qualifying tournament. And then there's one team that's coming from a tournament of nations that haven't gotten to play in 5-on-5 in a certain amount of years. Yeah. Which, again, to me, it's like, all right, this is the Olympics, not the Boys and Girls Club. Like, it should be the best teams in the world plus the host country and just do that. But the craziest part about this is that, like, 2 weeks after the deadline for the points to determine who qualifies automatically for Serbia, Russia, and China, FIBA changed the way that they were calculating points. So the U.S. went from 4th to 2nd. So if you did it today, we would automatically qualify. But the deadline had already passed. So some of the stuff is really just out there. And the way that we get in is we get in the top 3 at the Olympic qualifying tournament in Austria in May. So we'll have to go play and play in that and get to at least the semis and then, you know, win the 3rd place game. But I think our goals are definitely to win the tournament, much like we did at the World Cup.
Yeah, you're getting the wonderful world of international sports, and I think it's even going back to when I was a kid. It's been a moving target from time to time. You know, you look at that, and you're from your playing abilities. What has changed? You know, I used to say you and Etuan were beautiful basketball players. You just did everything there was a grace to the way you played, but what's gotten you to this level now where you're better or different, maybe different's the right word, than you were to really be effective in 3-on-3?
Yeah, I think I'm fairly similar. It's still all about like being versatile. You know, I still can really make shots, which is probably my best strength. In 3-on-3, they switch a lot of ball screens, so I've gotten much better at posting up. I wish I had that at Purdue because I really was given trouble when, you know, Bruce Weber kind of started doing this first. He'd put like Chester Frazier on me. Yeah. And Chester's like 6 foot, but he was strong and he was physical. And I didn't like that. You know, I liked it when those big guys were guarding me from the basket so I could drive them and run them around. So I've gotten a lot better at posting up for sure. I'm probably less of an athlete at this point than I even was, you know, my 5th year. Although I randomly will have like a good dunk every once in a while. I still, you know, occasionally surprise myself with that. But no, I think it's all about, in 3-on-3, it's all about being able to dribble, pass, and shoot. Yeah. And I think that was one of my strengths in college. And I think it was a strength of mine in high school and even maybe into the professional ranks. You know, I think my issue with the NBA was I wasn't a great shooter. I was a good shooter, like at that level. You know, when you're comparing yourself to the elite guys, I wasn't a great athlete at that level. I wasn't, you know, I was good at a lot of things, but I wasn't great. And I think that's kind of, you know, the NBA is such a specialist league, and I still think that being a versatile guy helps me playing 3-on-3. Yeah.
We had the discussion, an office discussion of the difference between you and a couple other guys, and I won't even name them, and the fine line between, you know, injuries and all those kinds of things, but just that fine little line of making it big or getting that right opportunity at the right time. And we'll have that offline conversation when we'll mention the names, but you've acquitted yourself just fine. So from that standpoint, and I will say from the Purdue perspective, you bring a lot. The fan base gets geeked up every time they get a chance to see you play. Now, you got to give me one. This is your apartment with these.
This is mine. It's like a condo in Chicago.
Okay, and tell me I mean, you're obviously the jerseys behind just ones you've collected, over the years? Or?
Yeah, I've been really lucky. Like I've collected, most of them are just like I've had who have worked for teams. Like I've got a Larry Bird jersey, and like Drew Anthrop worked for the Pacers. So Drew, I am in debt forever. He got it signed for me, like I ended up, I bought the Griffey one. I got the Scottie Pippen one through somebody at the Bulls. I've got an Etuan one, I've got a Breeze one, and then I've got my Timberwolves one, and I've got a USA Basketball one. So
very cool, very cool. Well, hey, Rob, thanks so much. After a busy day of work and a interesting college basketball game that didn't go Purdue's way, we enjoyed very much. We wish you the best as you go, and we'd have you on every week if we could, but we always appreciate you taking the time to join us. And we'll give Newbert some crap just because we will, and that'll be good. Best of your
not here.
Yeah, I know. He's not here to defend. He's working right now, or he's mad at me because he's not on this interview. But best to your parents as well. They're great people, and we'll look forward to that. One thing we always love is we always feel like when we see them in the hallways of games and you're out doing something else, that you're still around. So that part's a good thing. But again, enjoy the rest of this basketball season, and it will be interesting. What an amazing Big Ten season we've seen so far. So again, thanks again.
No problem.
Let State Farm agent Trent Johnson handle all the moving parts to your insurance. Whether it's for auto, home, life, or financial services, Trent Johnson is there with more ways to help and more ways to